Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into it.
At the mention of water injection system, many people skeptically smirk because they do not understand how ordinary water can positively affect the power of the power plant. Everyone is well aware of the consequences of hydrostroke. When driving through a puddle or water obstacle, a large volume of liquid penetrates into the intake tract, where it tries to compress the working piston, thereby provoking the destruction of the entire connecting rod and piston group. But injection should be understood as the spot addition of a special mixture that is fed inside the combustion chamber, and it is able to positively affect the power. So say the experts. It is necessary to understand this issue, understand the principle of operation of the technology, study its strengths and weaknesses, and also take into account the prospects for its introduction. Principle of work. For more than 100 years, the best engineering minds have been working to increase the output of the engine. At first, they worked on a very simple principle. Power was achieved by increasing engine displacement and the number of cylinders. But this was not economically viable. It was necessary to look for new ways to increase the efficiency of internal combustion engines, which did not require increasing the size or weight of the engine itself. As a result, turbochargers, compressors, various direct and distributed injection systems, variable phasing, updated cylinder piston groups, and much more have appeared. Comparatively recently, electric motors began to work in tandem with the internal combustion engine, which managed to add more power. And many were sure that there is nowhere to increase the output. The limit has been reached. But here we remember about water injection or water injection system in the engine. Most often it is used on highly boosted engines in order to improve their basic characteristics. Here we want to understand how exactly it works, and due to what the engine power increase occurs. There are several different injection systems, the differences between which are mainly in the location. For water injection, an additional special nozzle is installed on the intake manifold. It is responsible for feeding a special mixture consisting of water and methane into the engine intake tract. It is mixed with the fuel air mixture going directly into the combustion chamber. That is not quite fair to call the system water injection, but it sounds much more interesting and intriguing. It should also be understood why such a mixture is used, that is, water and alcohol. Such a liquid is characterized by its ability to freeze at lower temperatures than ordinary water. Plus, the combination of alcohol and water gets better dispersion properties, which allows to create uniform mixtures and reduce the current temperature in the intake manifold area. The nozzle delivers finely dispersed droplets, thus cooling the liquid, allowing for higher compression ratios and lower combustion rates inside the cylinders. This has the further advantage of reducing the risk of detonation. In addition, it is worth noting the effect of the temperature reduction during combustion of fuel and water on the chemical processes inside the combustion chamber. This results in a lower concentration of harmful emissions and carbon dioxide. But do not think that the system has only one advantage. Nothing is perfect, and in the case of water injection has its disadvantages. Waste gas is characterized by an increased concentration of hydrocarbons, which do not have time to burn. This to some extent affects the increase in fuel consumption when driving at low speed or at a moment when the throttle is fully open. Engines running on such a mixture may behave erratically. The fluid is often not evenly distributed throughout the cylinders. This results in a lean fuel/water mixture in some cylinders. To solve this problem, you can use individual injectors for each cylinder, which will be controlled through the ECU, the water injected system allows the use of distilled water only. If ordinary water is used, the impurities in it will create carbon deposits in the combustion chamber, which will lead to a noticeable reduction in engine life. The last argument deserves special attention. Yes, for the first time you will not notice any significant changes when working with ordinary water. But over time, a large amount of deposits will form, like limescale inside a kettle. That is exactly what you can see inside the cylinders of your engine if you do not pour purified distilled water. The beginning of technology development. Surely many people are wondering who came up with the idea of adding water to the engine and what the authors of this technology were counting on in general. In world practice, the first to use a water injection system was an engineer from Hungary with a difficult-to-pronounce surname Psinki. It happened at the very beginning of the last century, i.e. about 100 years ago. A few more years passed, and already an English professor named Hopkinson created an experimental system, which, due to water injection, allowed to increase the performance of industrial engines. Although the main bright mind is considered Ricardo, who at one time created a brand of the same name and was engaged in the manufacture of components for cars. He conducted a huge amount of research, obtained several patents, and described in detail all the methods and tests with engines equipped with water injection systems. Research and experiments allowed Ricardo to create an engine with such an unusual system, where a mixture of methane and water was used. As a result, the characteristics of the engine increased almost twofold. His development began to be actively used in the conditions of the World War II. Initially, the technology was adopted in aviation, where they tried by any means to increase the speed and height of airplanes, which conventional piston engines could not give in full. But they were also replaced at the end of the war by more advanced jet units. Read also how the planetary gearbox is organized and works. The German Air Force from 1942 began to actively use their new D-9 fighter, which received a water and methane injection system that allowed them to add power and speed during afterburner. Similar developments were applied to other engines, including those from BMW and Daimler, which at the time were not yet world-famous automakers. During the war, the turbocharging system was actively used on German aircraft, so the water injection became something like an intercooler. The mixture entered the intake tract of the aircraft engine, where it mixed with the fuel and penetrated the combustion chamber. When the resulting mixture came in contact with the hot cylinder walls, the water became vapor. The expansion allowed overpressure to build up inside the cylinder, and by pre-cooling the fuel at the intake, the volume of the mixture in the cylinder increased. All this ensured highly efficient combustion. This innovation allowed to increase the power by about 20 to 30% of the nominal, but this effect was short-term. Although this additional advantage was enough to gain altitude faster and develop a better top speed. But the other side did not stand still. The Germans quickly had competitors in the form of American bombers and fighters, which were equipped with analogs of the German methane water injection system. The USSR also tried to create something similar, but the attempts were unsuccessful. In 1943, they managed to build 5 airplanes based on IL-2, which were equipped with engines with innovative water injection system. But the tests clearly showed that it was too expensive to put such engines on the stream. Plus, they required very complex tuning. And in wartime conditions, there was simply no such possibility. Application on automobiles. By the end of the war in aviation, almost everyone switched to jet engines, which made it possible to abandon piston power units. That is, there was no longer a need to develop various methods of boosting. But automakers began to work actively on the system of water injection into engines. The pioneer in this interesting and quite promising at that time segment was the American auto giant General Motors. The company applied water injection on its serial car F-85 Jetfire, produced under the brand name Oldsmobile. The technology was needed to improve the detonation resistance of their turbocharged powertrain. The useful properties of water and methane have also been remembered in Europe. The first to do so were engineers from Saab. Water-methanol mixture was actively and for a long time used in the production of the 99 Turbo S car. The life cycle of the model lasted till the beginning of 80th years. But when more modern and effective intercoolers appeared, the systems were actually completely abandoned in car production. It was no longer used on production cars. But it's not all bad news for water injection. There appeared representatives of motorsport, where the idea of using water and methane seemed extremely interesting, promising. The year 1983 became a landmark. It was then that water injection systems were installed on the bolides of the Ferrari and Renault teams. As a result, the Italian stable won the first place among the constructors, scoring the highest number of points. Special tanks were provided on the cars. Their volume was 12 liters. They were filled with a special mixture consisting of alcohol and water. In addition, there were water pumps and pressure regulators. Soon the management of Formula One considered such systems a violation of the rules and equality of teams, as a result of which the regulations introduced a paragraph banning the use of such equipment. In the mid-90s, attempts to introduce water injection were made in the Le Mans and WRC racing series, but almost immediately the management banned their use. But the development gained great popularity among the participants of the popular in the USA quarter-mile races. Powerful dragsters, having mechanical superchargers in their design, were in dire need of efficient cooling. At the time, intercoolers were not yet widespread. As a result, some clever people came up with the idea of using a mixture of alcohol and water, which is injected into the power unit. The result of the introduction of the system was the appearance in the Arena supercar based on Porsche 911 for the finalization of which the company 9FF was responsible. In 2005, they set a unique at that time speed record. The car managed to accelerate to 388 kilometers per hour. This was the best achievement for a car that can officially move on public roads. The basis was an opposition six-cylinder engine, equipped with a pair of turbochargers. There was also a conventional intercooler, but water injection functioned in tandem with it. Injection system nowadays. Now it is interesting to know how things are with water injection nowadays. After 2005, no one showed much interest in the system. But, as before, it took only a little time for someone to remember about water with methane again. And it turned out to be BMW. And they used injection not to increase power, as it happened earlier, but to reduce fuel consumption. The pioneer was the BMW M4 car, which is used as a safety car in MotoGP motorcycle races. It used a conventional nozzle on its engine. It fed fluid into the manifold. But the Bavarians also had another prototype engine with 3 cylinders, turbine, and working volume of 1.5 liters. This used more advanced technology. Water and fuel were mixed by a high-pressure pump made by Bosch, which was activated only when the engine speed exceeded 4,000 RPM. The mixture of fuel and water with methane, moving through the nozzle, penetrated the combustion chamber. This allowed to increase the power from the initial 201 horsepower to 215 horses. In parallel, resistance to detonation increased, allowing the compression ratio to be utilized at 9.5 to 1, up from 11.0 to 1. Engineers also noted an overall improvement in the payoff when the motor operates at low and medium speeds. Read also, what is a low-pressure fuel pump? Its device, principle of operation, and purpose. The water tank on the car, equipped with heating, had a volume of 7 liters. In standard conditions, the consumption of a mixture of water and alcohol was 1.5 liters for every 100 kilometers of travel. Therefore, the driver had to refuel after 500 kilometers. But BMW engineers wouldn't be themselves if they didn't think of a way out of the situation. They took into account that during the operation of the air conditioning system in the car, quite a large amount of condensate is formed. They forced this liquid to drain into the tank. So they managed to save about 8% of fuel per 100 kilometers when driving the car in a mixed cycle. In theory, such a system can ideally work with hybrid drives. But the Bavarian automobile concern does not say anything about it yet. Engines equipped with a water methane injection system are being put into mass production. Moreover, cars with such power units will be supplied to Russia. Most of the advantages of such systems is that the engines will be less demanding to the quality of fuel. To be more precise, to its octane number. That is, it will be quite enough for BMW to refuel the car with good AI-95. The possibility of installing the system on the car. Motorists are interested in the question regarding the possibility of installing a water injection system with methane in the engine with their own hands. There is such a possibility. There are many homemade schemes for the realization of a water injection system, where such devices as medical syringes, droppers, and other actually improvised means are in use. They are mounted in the intake manifold, located behind the throttle flap. But the most interesting thing here is that the systems turn out to be quite working and quite effective. As a result, the car owner gets a certain increase in power and torque. But behind all these advantages, one should not forget about the existence of one significant disadvantage. It lies in the fact that homemade systems simply force to pour water in large volumes inside the collector. the liquid is not atomized. As a result, the suspension is unevenly distributed in the cylinders. That is, in some cylinders the mixture will be depleted, in others normal. And this is a direct path to uneven operation of the entire engine. If the amount of water exceeds critical marks, hydrastroke will be almost impossible to avoid. If you are ready to spend more money on modernization, then it makes sense to turn to specialized tuning studios. Here they sell kits that include a tank for mixing water with alcohol, a high-pressure pump, 5 to 10 bar, an electronic control unit, which is responsible for the operation of the pump, nozzles for injecting the liquid. The most expensive systems involve the use of a control valve. It controls the pressure and monitors the volume of water that enters the motor. This system works according to a fairly simple principle. The control unit is connected to the vehicle sensor, which is responsible for the airflow rate of the power unit. The unit reads and analyzes the received parameters, determines the optimal amount of water, and supplies it by sending the appropriate command to the executive device. In this case, it is the high-pressure pump. Although the system seems extremely simple, one should not overlook some of the complexities that arise. Water injection will only work when the powertrain is in a certain operating mode. Often, such systems function when the engine speed passes the 3,000 RPM mark. Also, the optional equipment will have little or no control over the supply of the water/alcohol mixture. It only gives commands for the high-pressure pump to turn on or off. The only limiter of the amount of incoming water is the nozzle. Therefore, it should be chosen very carefully. There is another important point. While the control unit sends a command to the pump for switching on, while the pump starts pumping liquid, there is a certain time delay between sending a signal for injection and the injection itself. The whole system suffers from this, as the efficiency of the system on the engine is reduced. As a result, there are different opinions about boosting by using water mixture with methane. But we can say that at present it is quite expensive, which looks unusual, and many motorists are simply frightened even by its name. People cannot understand how this water can increase power. As you have realized from everything considered earlier, the system really works and brings certain fruits. But there is no limit to perfection. So far, such boosting is perceived as a kind of exotic, with many pitfalls and unanswered questions. It is difficult to say whether it will be possible to somehow improve efficiency, make the system more affordable, and introduce it into car production on a mass scale. With the current alternative ways of boosting and increasing the output of engines, water injection does not look the most preferable. But the situation may change over time. It cannot be ruled out that in a few years someone will remember about water injection again, will think of a new way of using the system, and will realize it on their cars. And then everyone will say that water really works, and everyone will want to install such a solution. But so far the situation is not in favor of water injection. In conclusion, the water injection system presents a compelling solution for those looking to enhance engine power and efficiency. By introducing water into the combustion process, this technology not only helps to cool the intake air, but also allows for more aggressive tuning without the risk of knocking. As we have seen, the potential gains in horsepower and torque can be significant, making it an attractive option for both performance enthusiasts and everyday drivers alike. As with any modification, it's essential to consider the specific needs of your engine and ensure proper installation for optimal results. Thank you for watching, and we hope this exploration of water injection systems has provided valuable insights into boosting engine performance.